Hey guys, today I am here to discuss episode 9 of Neverafter from Dimension 20, and I know I said last time that that was my favorite episode that I had watched, but I have to rescind that because this episode was by far my favorite of the season so far. It was so interesting to get the origin stories more so for the characters who we weren't really there for their origin stories. So we learned more about Red and her turning into the wolf for the first time. We learned more about Pinocchio and how he came to make this deal with the stepmother that has become such an important and scary part of his life. And we also got to see Gerard, our favorite man, how he was turned into a frog, or at least like what his life was like as a frog, and how he met Elodie for the first time. So it was really, really fun because we've known these characters for so long, and we've known now that there is something wrong in this world, that something is happening with the stories that we all know as true and what are supposed to be true in this world. Something that's gone wrong with the stories, and it's really fun to see kind of where their paths diverged, and even before that, kind of which of their stories that were accepted as true were kind of messed up. So I feel like Gerard's was probably the most in line with what we do know. His story kind of really didn't have a big change until what we have come to know about him now, with the curse being reversed, right? Or the cure, I guess, for the curse being reversed and him turning back into a frog. But everything we got with his whole story, I think, lent a whole new lens to look at Gerard through, because he got turned into a frog when he was like a 10-year-old boy for just being a dick, which I think goes back to the kind of issue that people bring up with Beauty and the Beast of what kind of curse can you really give a 10-year-old boy? And like, it especially seemed like Gerard just wasn't getting attention from his parents. Like, they never really seemed to kind of go out and look for him or anything. He doesn't mention them. So it just seems like it was kind of an unfair curse to put on a literal child to then have 10 years of his life be in the swamp and be as a frog, where we learned that it's not fun. Like, I feel like, it's kind of made like, oh, look, a cartoon frog or whatever, but like the reality of being a frog, like he had no one to talk to. If he did like give names or make friends, I guess, with the other frogs, they were very easily killed. He was kind of dodging murder attempts by dogs and cranes and herons and all this stuff, so it was a very scary life. Like, I feel like the rest of the crew was like, oh, I kind of see now why he doesn't like being a frog, because it's like, it was a very harsh life. And I saw someone on Tumblr talk about how it adds a layer to Gerard's character of like him saying he's a coward, but it's like when all this war stuff started happening again, it was kind of like, yeah, maybe he should have been more inclined to be like, I want to help people and stuff like that. But also in his mind, it's kind of like, I've done my fighting. Like, I had 10 years in a swamp where I was fighting for my life. I had no one to talk to. Like, every day was awful. And like, I don't want to even pertain going back to a world like that. So it was kind of like denial was his way to go, because it's like, I suffered through a lot of stuff that like I shouldn't have had to. I mean, the more we see of Gerard, the more I think he also underestimates himself, but also just the way he talks about Elodie and how he doesn't want his stories to go back to what it's supposed to be, because he's more interested and more wants Elodie to get the happy ending that she wants, which I think shows how much they really, or at least he really loves her. I hope they do get back together, and I'm excited to see them interact more, because I loved their first interaction. I love Elodie. We've only seen her like little bits and pieces, but she's just so funny. Like, I even loved when Gerard was like, oh, I'm a prince. And she's like, okay, bye, Gerard. Like, she didn't believe him. She was like, this is done. And then she was like, what happened with your curse? Like, what happened? And he was like, well, someone has to fall in love with me. And she's like, okay, bye-bye. Like, she's just so funny. And I love the way Murph and Brennan played it, where Murph was like, wait, don't leave me. You're supposed to put me in a handkerchief. And she's like, don't touch me. And he's like, I'm not. It's just so funny to know, like, their whole journey that they go on, becoming friends and then falling in love. And then you want to kiss him, but he's a frog. So you kiss the frog, you give him a little kiss, and then he turns into a prince. Like, I think it's just really sweet, and I hope that they can find each other again and reconnect, and kind of like Gerard said, of like fall in love with each other and get that moment to break the curse. But I feel like he wasn't as interested in like breaking the curse. Like, that's not his main goal anymore. His main goal is like, breaking the curse means that him and Ellie are in love with each other, and that's what he wants, is for them to be in love with each other. And I think it's just so sweet and cute, and it really has me excited for, hopefully we'll get to see her soon, because we've had mentions of her, but we haven't really seen the princesses in present day in a while. I think since we saw Cinderella in like the 3rd episode or something like that. So yeah, it's definitely more excited now to see Elodie again. I've always been excited, but like I think at the beginning I had no hope that they were gonna get back together, and now I kind of do, but it's also gonna crush me if they don't, if that makes sense. So we'll see how that goes. Red's story was also so phenomenal. So I don't know if anyone else has watched the new Puss in Boots movie, The Last Wish, but in that movie, Death is portrayed by a big bad wolf. And so when they said that the wolf is Death in this universe as well, I was like, what? Like, I was so shocked that it's happened twice now in like less than a month, really. But I was really, really excited to see more of Ylfa because like we've known that she turned into a wolf, but we don't know what exactly happened. And we also have confirmation that the wolf is missing, which if the wolf is like the ending of things, Death, like that means something's stopping this from ending, and like just it goes into that idea of like someone wants the time of shadows to stay around, and it seems like it's not the gander because the gander's almost in pain that they're still here. Like the gander likes chaos and upheaval, but like Brendan was saying, like the gander, like this is just a part of like who the gander is like the gander is more like chaos personified, and like it needs to go on to other worlds and become what is chaos in those worlds, but it's been stuck in this world and it's in pain now because of that. That's happening. The wolf is also missing, but also just seeing the interaction between Ylfa and the wolf was so absolutely heartbreaking. Like once again, Emily killed it because like I'm laughing about freaking lollycorn and a butterfly chasing a caterpillar, and then I'm just crying from what she's portraying of like this idea of the wolf, you know, was supposed to be killed by the woodsman, and in her story she's like, I'm gonna wait for the woodsman, and like she's like frozen like in time because it's like her story's broke and it's like the woodsman's not coming, and the wolf is like the woodsman's not coming, and like not makes her, but like is basically like your only option is to kill the wolf to survive so you can eat. And like the idea of her literally eating the wolf to like save herself, but also getting permission from Death to like be like, Death is like, you have to live. Like I feel like that's where I've been saying for a while I want Ylfa to be like more confident in herself and her ability and her like meaning, and not thinking of herself as like someone who's wrong for the story, who like broke the story, but like who is supposed to break the story in the best way possible. And I think this is kind of where we've seen a turning point with her, because she realizes like Death wanted her to live, and like that's pretty hardcore, and like there's a reason for all of that, and I'm just excited to see what's going to happen now with them going after the 3 little pigs. Someone else, there was another thing I saw on Tumblr that someone was like, the moral of the 3 little pigs is also bad, because I don't know if the original one is the other 2 pigs die, but I feel like the ones that most kids hear is that the other 2 pigs run to the pig that built the brick house and they all get to stay safe. But someone's like, that's a bad moral, that like you can take the easy way out and then just like go and hang out and be saved by someone who actually did all the work and be fine. So I'm interested to see like if the other 2 pigs are going to be alive. It doesn't seem like it because like this is a very dark world and stuff like that, but I'm interested to see if they're going to find the wolf and what exactly that means, or if like Ylfa's the wolf even, you know, like if it's just like her personification now is she's the wolf, like the wolf has given her his powers or something like that. It did seem like, I don't know if it was a joke, but it did seem like the boar easily recognized her. Like he's like, oh, you didn't want to blow anyone away or whatever. But then it seemed like they are going to find the wolf based on the preview, because they were like, Brendan was like, oh, this is the biggest, baddest thing in the story and you want to release it or something like that. And like big bad wolf is how he's described. So I feel like they're going to find the wolf. And then I also thought it was very interesting what we got about the fairies, because the fairy with the turquoise hair seems to think that she is in the right, and like they want these stories to continue on the way that they're supposed to, the way that the authors want them to. But what I thought was really interesting was her reasoning is like, what if like we get out and break these stories and make our own, but they're so much worse? And I thought like that's kind of messed up reasoning, because like not taking a chance because something could be worse, but like being stuck in like obviously like a world where like Cinderella's mother is always gonna die, or like Pinocchio is always gonna lie, or you know what I mean, like something like that, where it's like, okay, you're being like, we've got to accept this fate because it could be worse. Like that just seems so messed up. And like for a second they had me thinking like, oh wait, are the princesses actually the bad ones because they're the ones trying to break these stories? But I don't think so. Like I think the fairies are just scared, like they just want to stay in positions of power, and since they get their magic from the authors, they want the authors to be happy. And I feel like that's not great. What was surprising to me, which was kind of like, we had already known this, but I feel like it was more confirmed in this one, is that the wicked stepmother is not with them. She's her own entity. And I loved getting her backstory about how like it happened with her and how she was trying to save her daughters. And then Baba Yaga revealed to her that she's just a story. She doesn't have a name. And I thought it was interesting how she's like, you're the wicked stepmother. And she was like, I'm not a wicked stepmother. Like, I didn't mistreat her. And Baba Yaga's like, but you did. I didn't say you're a wicked stepmother. I said you're the wicked stepmother. And like, she didn't even have a name and stuff like that. And how it was kind of like, someone pointed out, it's kind of that thing of like, oh, you think I'm bad? Like, you think I'm bad? I'm going to show you bad. You know, or it's like you piss someone off and like label them as something and they're like, oh, you think I'm that? I'm going to be that and so much worse now because of it. And that's kind of what happened. Like, she was given these powers, but she's like, what's the point of this story if we're not in control of it? And now she just wants to devour all these other stories and kind of make it so like, if I'm going down, I'm taking everyone with me kind of thing, you know? So that was horrifying. But then I'm also like, do we have to find Baba Yaga? Like, I know Yilfa really wanted to, but I was like, I don't know, because it's like she obviously was aware that they were, you know, in a story and all that, and knew that this kind of horrible thing was gonna, like, kind of gave her the power to do all this. But it's interesting because it's like, what is the end game in that? So it makes the stepmother so much scarier. Like, I thought this episode was gonna start with them having a fight, but the fact that like they got away from her really feels like when you get away from like the big bad because you're not ready yet, you know, like you don't have the power yet to face them. So I feel like maybe she is the big bad, or maybe there's multiple kind of big bads that are on different sides of things, because I feel like maybe who's hiding the wolf is different than the wicked stepmother and stuff like that. So it'll just be really interesting to see how it plays out. I think it's so fascinating, and like seeing her interact with Pinocchio, how she was being like, I'm your mother, and like saying all these sweet kind things, and like her voice even sounded so different from what we had seen with the wicked stepmother, and how she interacts with Pinocchio now was like so scary. And it was just amazing to see all their origin stories and how, you know, it's kind of like you're just put in this situation where there's like not great decisions. Like it was the same with Yilfa and the wolf. Like her story got ruined because it was like the woodsman wasn't coming. That wasn't her choice. Like she had to choose to live or not. And with Pinocchio, like same with his dad. Like it was like he lied, but he lied for a good reason. He lied to save his dad, and no one was listening to him. No one was trying to hear his story. They were just like, you're not supposed to lie. So it's just interesting to see how like these morals of these stories that we get from them are being kind of twisted to show that like, is the moral of the story correct? Like, is this fair to be like, oh, I'm gonna wait for someone to come around and save me. I'm not gonna lie even if it's gonna save someone. Like, it's just such an interesting premise that it proposes, and each week I think it gets more and more interesting in how they really dive into like the meta-ness of it, of the characters now knowing that they're characters and stuff like that. And I'm just so excited to see what we have in the future. We're breaking into, or I guess breaking in, he kind of let us in, but we're breaking into the boar's place next time and trying to find the wolf. So that'll be really interesting. It'll look like they had like a battle set and everything like that. So I'm excited to see them in battle now that they're all rested up from Mother Goose's beautiful, beautiful song that sang them to sleep. So yeah, if you have seen this episode, please feel free to let me know what you thought about it and what you thought of the reveals of Red and Gerard and Pinocchio's origins, and if you were sobbing, if you were like having any new theories from everything. And I'm just so excited to see what's gonna happen and what you guys thought of it. So yeah, let me know what you thought down below in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!